No, it does strengthen Pakistan's long-standing position, and the world is. Recently, a conference was held in Tehran where Afghanistan's neighbors were present, including also Russia. So I think there is a more or less consensus among the neighboring countries and also countries which are concerned about terrorism emanating from Afghanistan that there is presence of different banned organizations or terrorist organizations in Afghanistan. So I think uh, now it is for Afghanistan, for Kabul to look inwards and see how it can assuage uh, concerns which are there among the countries, especially the neighboring countries. Whether they would do it, that is your guess is as good as mine. But I think Pakistan's and I think our concerns are genuine. And Afghanistan needs to do something really tangible about it. Yes, Pakistan, we do have evidence, and we have been sharing that with the UN, with major players, including the US, China, Russia, and even with Afghanistan, frankly speaking, we have been sharing. But I would like to underscore one point that terrorism emanating from Afghanistan is not a new phenomenon. It has been going on when even the Taliban were not in power in Kabul. Even during the times of Hamid Karzai and Ashraf Ghani, Pakistan has been suffering terrorism at the hands of the TTP and other terrorist organizations. For example, just a week back, a few days back, we marked uh, the 14th, the 16th December, APS, terrorist action in APS in Peshawar. So the terrorism is not something new in Pakistan. My contention is slightly different. Though Afghanistan is to be blamed for this, but I think it has two dimensions, or the three dimensions. Uh, no doubt, there is terrorism emanating from across the border from Afghanistan, but there is also we cannot be totally cannot uh, ignore the internal dimension of terrorism as well. Whereas Afghanistan government has failed, the Kabul regime not stepped up to our expectations. On the other hand, we need to also introspect as to what are the gaping holes which we have not been able to plug during the last 20, 15, 20 years. Our own national strategy against terrorism, our own institutions, have they been up to the plate? Have we been able to do whatever was or is required to do internally? So these are the hard questions which we also need to answer, rather than blaming everything or blaming foreign actors. We need to look inwards as well. Only then can we perhaps put up or at least decimate this scourge uh, forever. Otherwise, we have been hearing, for decades now that Pakistan will extirpate this menace for all times to come. But we are not being, frankly speaking, seeing many successes in this behalf. So, whereas we are right to uh, seek more action from the Kabul regime, uh, and then there, but we're also required to do or take steps internally as well. On the other hand, it is also important to keep in mind that there are countries which are funding these proscribed organizations. And first name which comes to mind is India. India is now mollycoddling with the Taliban regime. We have no issue. That is their sovereign right to engage with each other, have good relations. We have no problem so long as their relations do not create security problems for Pakistan. But we all know for a fact that India has been supporting, funding not only the TTP, but also Baloch organizations like BRA, BLA, and so on and so forth. So this problem has two, three dimensions, and I hope that rather than focusing only on one dimension, this is not going to settle the problem, or we cannot really get rid of terrorism if we are focusing only on one aspect and totally completely ignoring the other. That's why I keep on insisting that Pakistan needs to have a coherent, well calibrated, a well thought out strategy in order to, and we do have a national action plan in this regard. But my question is whether this plan has been implemented, executed. Apparently, the answer is no. No, I think Pakistan does have options, but the way I look at it is slightly different. My own view is that uh, Afghanistan is will not come under any regional pressure. And then remember that India is now playing a role which may not be very helpful for Pakistan. And the Kabul regime at this stage looks like that they are cozying up to India. And just within a span of 1 month, three ministers have already visited India. So things are not very propitious from our perspective. My own view is that rather than counting on regionalism when it comes to Afghanistan, Pakistan needs to explore possibilities bilaterally, or at the most trilaterally with China. But I am a strong proponent of, when it comes to Afghanistan, is that Pakistan still has good space, good opportunities. It's just a matter of how you leverage them to your advantage. It would not serve any purpose because, the Kabul regime is not recognized by any state other than Russia. So they have the room to play the ball the way they want to play the ball. But then by putting on the back foot the Kabul regime, you are further pushing them towards India. And then you are also kind of, I have seen some reports that Pakistan, there were kind of favorable statements coming out from the national resistance forces of Afghanistan, the likes of Ahmad Shah Massoud and Haqiq and Rashid Dostum and so on. And they're all those people who were fighting Pakistan during the time of Ashraf Ghani and Hamid Karzai. Could you bank on those people? In my view, no. Secondly, it must be remembered that civil strife in Afghanistan or civil war in Afghanistan is not in Pakistan's interest. We will be doing the same thing, unfortunately, if we go down that route to encourage opposition or encourage the resistance against the Taliban government. So that is not in our long-term interest, not even in our short-term interest even. So Pakistan needs to be, needs to be more circumspect in this regard, rather than to be carried away by these statements from, coming out by opposition in Afghanistan or by. We need to take a step back uh, weigh our options, and then, in my view, reach out to the Kabul government. There is no harm. And that can be done through a silent, quiet diplomacy. It is not necessary to do things and bring everything to the public domain. There are times when you do quiet diplomacy on the back channel, and that way of doing diplomacy does deliver at times, rather most of the times, in my view. But if you make everything public and megaphone, resort to megaphone diplomacy, then my view is that even things which can be taken care of can go awry. And this is not, I believe, Pakistan wants vis-a-vis Afghanistan. Yes, nobody is saying that Pakistan should be compromising. For instance, I am absolutely against and averse to holding any talks with the TTP. Uh, that is very, very clear. But we should also remember that now, whether we like it or not, the Taliban are ruling Afghanistan. And there is more or less, there is peace in Afghanistan. So, Pakistan, while maintaining its position on the TTP, on the issue of terrorism, can still engage with the Kabul, uh, and there is no point as to. I mean, I do not know, do not rather understand as to what stops Pakistan. Though our foreign minister was in Kabul, I think in April this year, and then Afghanistan's foreign minister was to come to Pakistan, but that for some administrative reasons could not happen. But then he went to India. I mean, such things should not be allowed to happen. Uh, and once we generate some bilateral momentum, that needs to be sustained. And now there is a gap, obviously, but we need to, because Afghanistan is a very, very important country for us, whether it is Balochistan or it is KP, whether we want investments, US investments or Western investments or China's investments. Uh, so you would, I'm sure, agree with me that unless we have a situation is under control, Pakistan will never be able to realize its potential. So Afghanistan is one country, I think, we need to double down our efforts. We need to work extra hours in order to ensure that our relations with Afghanistan first do not deteriorate further, and then we are able to build bridges of trust. At this point in time, it seems that we have become enemies, and that is a situation which should worry us, in my view. I do not know how people so easily talk about these things. For me, it's a very serious situation, and I'm really, really worried about it. No, I think it is important to reach out to US and take them into confidence, because US still has leverage over India. Similarly, China is our strategic partner, and I'm sure they are also concerned about the situation vis-a-vis Afghanistan. So these channels of communication should remain open. Rather, we need to talk more and more with these countries in order to convey our concerns and ask them to help us, not only putting pressure on Afghanistan, on Kabul, but also on India as well. So this is one thing which diplomats do all the time, and this is the crux of diplomacy. And I'm sure that Pakistan has already been doing that. And since Prime Minister Modi in India does want to repair India's relations with the US and conclude the trade agreement as well. So I think these two countries, China and US, do have leverage, and Pakistan. And since President Trump is also these days favorably inclined towards Pakistan, so this is the time to uh, ask, particularly the U.S., to if as President Trump claims that he is for peace, then we should not only uh, convince his administration to help bring about peace uh, between Pakistan and India, but also help us in fighting terrorism in the region, Jammu and Kashmir dispute, Indus Waters Treaty. But as I said, these countries can play a role, but that role cannot be, we cannot just count on that, on these two countries. It's a multi-pronged thing. And whether Pakistan is able to come up with a well coordinated response, I'm not sure. The time will show. But this is one part of diplomacy, one dimension of diplomacy. So Pakistan should continue doing what it is doing, but that should tessellate with whatever we do on other fronts.